everyone. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm King Dong, a.k.a. Aaron.
And today, Aaron, you shall not pass Flimbo's Quest.
Don't worry, I'm going to fail Flimbo's Quest. Don't worry.
You know, Aaron, when you think about all of the quests that you've undertaken in your life, you know, what springs to mind? When I lived in Korea, I used to go about my daily business, riding the bus around town, and I was playing a lot of World of Warcraft at the time. And I realized that, like, my life, everybody's life, is just a series of fetch quests. You're going someplace to do a thing, then you come home at night to get your XP, which is what you call the 8 solid hours of sleep. What quests stick out to you from your life?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, if you put it in that light, every day at work that I have to go somewhere, it's like a quest.
Yeah.
You literally, I go out in the middle of nowhere, I do something hideous, I'm rewarded by getting to leave. They open the gate, let me out. I get back in, I get my trusty steed, and I head back to the pad. That's my quest for the day. You know, and
Now,
also
remember-
there are wandering monsters on my quest too. And if you screw up, there's also keys, locked doors. There's all the stuff you would expect in a quest, you know, except for the good reward. But that comes when the payday comes around and they pay the king.
That's right. That's right. Now, you know, remember how a couple weeks ago you were talking about when you used to be down with the EQ, you used to camp in various locations, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you ever find yourself on the job at a situation where you've got to camp for a while?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'll give you an example. So, like, I go to this detention center that they aren't very good at capturing the call box when you hit the little button.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you got to do is you camp out in the lobby with all the people waiting to see their loved ones and whatever, and you wait for one of the workers to stagger through. That's when you jump in action and go, let me in, let me in, let me in. And then they've got a radio that can get you in. So that's sort of like, that's the way that goes.
Do you ever see one of those places? Is it real, like what they show on TV, where they have like the glass pane and the phones on each side and the 2 chairs? Is that a real thing?
Well, you know, like if you watch a movie, they've got like a big row of these things, right?
Yeah.
Like I go to detention centers, regional jails, and they don't have like 50 of these in a row. They'll have like 1 or 2, maybe. But it's true. It's got the glass deal. Most of the time, I see prisoners going in there, and they'll use because they got an actual phone in there too. So it's not so much like people visiting them, although they can. But it's usually, when I'm there, it's suckers making their phone call. The I'm screwed, please help me, or can you bail me out? Can you come pick me up? Because they won't just let a sucker roll. They gotta they've got a way to get him out of there.
Right.
Yeah, but that's true. That's 100% true. And it's usually like it's usually dark and gray, and it's got glass all over the place. That's all true. It looks pretty dismal looking, actually.
Well, Aaron, I think you just described today's game, Flimbo's Quest. Let's talk about it.
It's a pretty peppy tune, Bode.
Yeah, man.
If I must say. So here we are. Flimbo's Quest. Gandalf just dropped the hat.
That's right. It's like dropping the mic.
So, Flimbo's Quest. Had you ever played it? You had played this one. Am I right on this?
This one I had not played. I looked at my ranking of Amiga platformers, and this one was not on the list.
Okay, good. I'm glad for multiple reasons. So you've not played this one. Neither did I. I don't think I'd ever touched on this one. This is Flimbo's Quest from 1990. Boat. Now, depending on where you look, you'll get several different answers to who developed this, but best I could find, it was developed much like the C64 version, by an outfit called, ironically enough, Boys Without Brains.
It's not a good omen.
In brackets, it says Euphoria. So I think these guys they're from the Netherlands, so I think they also may have done some demo work.
Sounds like it.
These guys worked on Disposable Hero and Hawkeye.
Okay. Well, Disposable Hero, that's a shooter. And if I recall, it was not bad.
This was the design credit on this goes to Lawrence Vander Donk. That's a good name.
The Donk, yeah.
The Donker. This was published by System 3, which struck me as odd. We went around with some of their stuff. They did the last Ninja games, the IK Pluses, the IKs. They did Myth. Remember Myth? We played that.
Yeah.
They did all the putty games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they did Tusker, Bangkok Knights, and Fuzzball, which we have not played any of those. Coded, by the way, the designer never did anything else on the Amiga. The coder, Roger Shootlar, never did anything else on the Amiga. The music on this was done by Charles Deenan. He did do stuff, including Castles 2, Death Trap, Insects in Space, and Lost Viking, and Stormlord. Some good stuff in there. This was not this. So obviously this was not based on the C64 release, but from what I've been able to ascertain, the C64 release came out briefly before this did. I was surprised that this got so many ports until I sat back and thought about it. You can play this on the Amstrad, the Atari ST, and the C64. Get this, boat. In the ads for this, or excuse me, in the instructions, in the instruction book, it says it has instructions for playing this on the Spectrum. There was no Spectrum version ever released, but apparently it was finished or close to being finished. So it's probably floating around somewhere, boat. OCS, and when this was released, you were looking at $24.99, £24.99 on this one, Boater.
Okay.
First of all, let's just talk about the most irritating thing of them all. I'm sure you know this already, but I'm gonna give all the listeners a nickel's worth of free advice. When this game starts up, you have the choice of playing the game by hitting F1, or by hitting F2. It says story. All right. Under no circumstance should you ever hit F2. If you do, immediately turn off your machine because you have done screwed up. Because story mode in this, as attractive as that may be, is an unskippable load of garbage. Did you try story mode per chance?
No, I luckily turned this on after Pajako posted a warning on Discord that said this thing is minutes and minutes and minutes long, and it is unskippable. It's interesting the way that they do it. You have a coder, I presume, or a storyteller, a storysmith, typing on a keyboard, and then the computer screen is blown up, sort of a picture-in-picture type thing, so you can see what he's writing. It's an interesting gimmick, and it would have been cool had it not been quite so long, or if there was a way to just say, okay, I've had enough of the story and get out. The story does repeat itself in the manual, so if you read the manual, you get the same idea, just faster.
I'm gonna go against you on this, boat.
Okay.
It is not interesting. It could never have been made interesting because listen, there's a little geek typing on a computer, and I will say one of the things I saw, because I had plenty of time to kill, is as the words come up on the screen, his little blocky monitor on his computer match the length of the word.
That's what I'm saying. It's a neat gimmick.
No, it's not, dude. I thought I was reading the Elvira book again. This thing goes on forever, and the story is stupid. Not only is it stupid, but it's boring. And story mode is just literally reading wave after wave of text. I thought to myself, maybe they did this to help out the pirates. That would they would at least know what they were doing.
It's like on an Amstrad game, how they put or a BBC game, how they put the instructions on the opening screen. I always love when they do that.
I mean, normally I'll be like, hey, Bud, I'm going to read these things. Will you indulge me? I'm not going to do that. It's too long. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it.
Okay.
The mad scientist, the mad scientist Franz Dandruff has created a machine that takes life from one person and puts it in him and extends his life. That old gimmick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who does he kidnap? The hot, young Princess Pearly, the beauty queen of Dewdrop Land. All right?
All right.
Dewdrop Land, boat, to provide his energy. So guess who her boyfriend happens to be? Flimbo.
That is
Flimbo
unlikely.
It's true. Somehow this little geek is dating the beauty princess. It says here, little suspecting that her boyfriend was Dewdrop Land's resident superhero. Keep that in mind. This is the resident superhero of Dewdrop Land, this geek, Flimbo, with his dumb hat and his stupid outfit. So Flimbo's job is to brave 7 distinct levels, I'm being kind, and get to Fran's dangerous laboratory. All right, that's the game. Just any thoughts on? So here you are. You're sitting there. Your long beard and locks flowing. You load this up. You hit the button, and this hones into view. What are your initial thoughts, Boater?
Man, this is a Euro platformer game. That was my initial thought. Because you can tell immediately upon playing this game that it was designed for one thing in mind: ease of porting to all existing 8 and 16-bit machines.
Yeah, that's the part where when I was like, hey, look at all these ports, I was like, ah. I wrote in the flavor text to promote these videos on YouTube that this was the perfect game for the Halloween season, because this thing is a 8-bit game wearing a 16-bit disguise.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
To try to pretend that, look at this, everybody. Look, it got a cool background. No, don't buy it. When you said early on in the week, you're like, look at all this brown. I was like, uh-oh. I knew I was in trouble right there, because I know what that means. That means this thing's been yanked over violently from the C64, the king of the brown. Even I tip my cow to that guy. That's the king of brown. And so what you get here, at least on the first level, I mean, it gets better. But the first level is this dingy looking. It's not the best. I mean, it's not the worst, but it's certainly not the best.
Well, it's a garden. The first level is like a garden, but it's a garden that's populated with a lot of wood and wood-colored objects.
That's a good description. So, just to get you in here, Bode, how would you describe this game?
This is a platforming game in which you have to collect certain objects. You have to collect certain scrolls to spell a word. The gameplay loop is that each stage is a fixed number of freely scrolling screens. What you have to do is you have to traverse the level, going back and forth across the same fixed number of screens to collect. When you kill enemies, they drop certain objects. And what you're looking for, the only object of any real import, is the scroll. Okay. Once you find the scroll, you have to locate the shop. There's a shop on every level. So you go into the shop and you turn in your scroll, and then that scroll letter goes on a board. Okay. Once you spell the required word, you progress to the next stage. Okay. That's the game. That's the game.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. And so they do put in a couple, I mean, of the lowest end wrinkles to, I guess, provide some additional fun. So there's a of course, this is another, by the way, this is another example of the Dreamcatcher rule. It's one third of the screen is taken up by a gigantic load of crap down here with scores and times.
You've got portraits of the bad guy and the good girl, the Princess Pearly.
Names.
And the dandruff is down there.
By the way, this is the beauty queen of Dewdrop Land. Jiminy Christmas.
In the land of the blind.
That might explain it. So, as you go through, as Boat mentioned, to get these scrolls, there's a window that highlights the guy you're supposed to go after to get the scrolls, all right? And so, the best way for me to explain, if you're listening at home, or in your car, the best way to explain this game is like picture in your mind Super Mario Bros. From the arcade. Remember that? Everyone loved that game. It's great. Mario Bros. Not
Mario Brothers. Yeah.
Now, picture a much crappier look And then picture that your ability to scroll through left to right, and the sort of the ledges and stuff keep coming. That's sort of kind of how the
Yeah,
setup
you've
is.
got a series of vertical platforms that run long distances. So wherever you go, you always have the option of jumping up and down platforms. I think the analogy to Mario Brothers is very apt here.
Thank you,
This
bud.
isn't a game like Super Mario Brothers
No.
where most of the platforming entails running and jumping upon a single plane. This is throughout all of the stages. They're multi vertically planed. Almost, and another example might be Popeye without the ladders. You're just able to jump between the platforms.
The funny thing about this game is you said this is your typical Euro. I'm going to disagree with you in terms of that because I don't know if I've played I'm not sure I've played a game like this, a platform game that is as weird as this.
Well, no,
Because
okay. Let me rephrase before you go on.
yeah,
This is not typical in its gameplay.
yeah.
It's typical in its setting and feel.
Oh
It
yeah,
feels
oh
and
yeah.
looks like an 8-bit game that has some lipstick on it.
No, that I agree with. I mean, it does. And I'm going to get into that, but just the game itself, it's more like it's like playing like Defender or something, except there's no wraparound. There's just like a certain amount of screens you can go through left to right, and then eventually you just come to the end, and there's no more scrolling. So it's not like playing like a game like Mario Bros. Or Super Mario or Super Frog or anything like that, where there's a beginning and an end of the level. This level, it just has two ends.
Well, it's almost like they took the Sonic concept or even the Super Frog concept where you have to collect a certain amount of things before you can go on. Okay. They've said, okay, you don't have to collect a certain amount of things. The amount of things is it's a certain number of scrolls. Okay. But instead of reaching an endpoint at the end of the level, you can kind of turn these things in one by one. It is a unique concept. I have not played a game quite like Flimbo's Quest before, in that they take all of like the long stages that you might get in a typical Euro platformer where you're collecting things, and they shrink it way, way down. I would say that these screens are probably about 10 yards or 10 screens across. You've got 5 on each side of the store. Usually the store is somewhere in the middle. And so if you can imagine that, like a 10 screen scroller, and then you are hunting down an enemy, like you said, Defender style, where you've got a special enemy you've got to kill, but there's no wraparound. So if you go all the way to the end of the level and it's not there, you got to go all the way back. Now, it is sort of a saving grace that they tell you what the enemy is. And they do it in two ways. They put the color and the type of enemy on the bottom. And then when you're out in the real world, the enemy has a big white arrow that's flashing above it that tells you. So they don't make it. They could have made it worse. They could have made it even harder to find these scrolls. So there is a little chink of sunlight there.
Now, so I will agree with you. This is an unusual concept in platforming. Now, if you allow me, I will now bury this idiotic concept. Because this, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call lazy. Lazy game. Here's what they did. This game is 7 levels long, and each level is made up of, like Boat said, maybe 10 screens. All right, and that may be generous, by the way. And when I say 10 screens, don't get excited, because it's the same screen, just rearranged in a cunning way. There's some areas where you can fall through the bottom of the screen. You have to go across the top to get like a bridge across, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're on the level. The enemies, here they come. They always respawn. They never stop. They're always coming, and the gameplay on the levels never changes. You've got to go out, kill the one you need, and then bring back the thing. You can only carry one item, so they've made it so you have to go back over and over to spell to get all these letters out. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you're going to be traversing back and forth across these all the same looking 10 screens for every level over and over and over again. And there's no way to stop. That's how you get past the game. And the level ends. There's not even a satisfying level end. You just go in and talk to the idiot in the store, By the way, he doesn't care much about the Princess of Dewdrop Land because he's making you pay for all this crap that he's got in there. We'll get to that. And then he's like, good job. You ended the level. Nice one, eh? And by the way, just to be a jerk, he sells a thing that if you buy it will just automatically end the level. Which leads one to the question, why doesn't this jerk just go capture the chick? He's got all the scrolls he needs to get to the end.
I think this jerk is in league with Dandruff.
I mean, maybe this is a money-making scheme with Dandruff. Who can tell? But, I mean, so you're going to be, when you play these 7 distinct levels, and, I mean, I will say the graphic palette changes and new creatures come out on each level. I'll give you that. But it's, I mean, these creatures are anything for the most part, they're not anything to write home about. We haven't even talked about the combat. We'll get to it. But in terms of the gameplay, I can't think of a game that did less with less. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over. And even though you're on a different palette set, it's not, I mean, the enemies are a little bit different. Sometimes they get harder. Nothing changes. Plus, on top of everything else, when you die, it starts you right back where you were, which is fine. But the problem is, if depending on where you die and start back up, you may have to instantly. Now, I will say the game does make it so when it's the exact second you start back up, until you move around, usually I've never seen it kill you, but it can put you in a very bad starting position, and then you've got to get out of where you're at quickly because the stuff comes out real fast, especially on the later levels where the stuff takes a lot of time to kill. When you come back out of death, you could be instantly in trouble, which I always hate that. So, yeah, I think the gameplay on this sucks. Any thoughts on the gameplay before we move on to the combat?
Well, I think the one interesting gameplay mechanic I saw was the bonus. There is a bonus room in each stage, and you enter the bonus room, and there are all these sacks of treasure. Okay, and there's one sack of treasure that has a label on it. Okay, and if you get that sack of treasure, then another sack will be the one that has the label on it. Okay, do you know what classic arcade game this is stolen whole hog from?
No.
Bomb Jack. This is Bomb Jack. This is the whole conceit of the game. And so you have to jump around the room avoiding the non-labeled sacks of treasure to get to the sacks that are labeled, so the non-labeled sacks can eventually become labeled. I actually thought that was kind of fun. That was the most fun I had with the game, was hopping around the sacks.
Hey, listen. Some people are into the sacks and some people ain't. They didn't do it for me. Let's talk about, and we're going to finish up by talking about Flimbo, but let's talk about Flimbo's abilities. All right. So Flimbo has the ability, thanks to this, there's a wizard before he leaves on this quest. It's like, Flimbo, listen, this is a lot like, this reminds me of another game me and Brent played on ARG. It was on Atari ST. The wizard, he goes, listen, Flimbo, you're going out into the world, so I'm going to set you up. And he gives him the ability to, like, shoot stuff, basically. The wizard must not have been a big fan, because this guy's weapon is the low end pea shooter attack that, I mean, it just sucks. Even the most lowly, listen, there have never, in the history of games, Bode, we've played a lot of games. Have you ever seen a game that contained more lethal eggs, shells, and butterflies than this game here?
No, this game holds the record for that particular category.
Even Apidia bows down to the insects in this game because, I mean, these are butterflies. And Flimbo, who's the superhero of Dewdrop Land, can be killed by I don't mean like a monster egg, the egg from Aliens. I just mean an egg that's just sitting above him. If he rams into it, this idiot gets killed. Butterflies kill him at their leisure. He gets anywhere near them. They're as deadly an enemy in this as any of the other enemies because of the way they move. But yes, this guy can be killed by anything, and his ability to kill sucks. Now, as Bo mentioned, you can go through this game and get cash, sacks of cash, right, or coins. When you get money, you can go to that cheap scumbag that's selling you that you turn in the letters to, the scrolls, and he will give you an upgrade, all right? And I use upgrade in a kingly quotes here, because once you get this upgrade to your ability to shoot, I couldn't tell a lick of difference on this. Could you?
Yeah, when you get the upgrade, I definitely could tell a difference. You shoot right through enemies. One of the weird things about this game is that normally when you play a shooter like this, because this is really more of a run and gun, it's than a traditional platformer, because you have a projectile weapon that is your only form of offense. Normally in a game like this, your garden variety enemies take one shot to kill, or maybe two shots in very rare cases. In Flimbo's quest, your garden variety enemy takes 3 shots to kill.
Mm-hmm.
So even on the first level, like you said, if you die, you can easily spawn into a place where you have like 3 or 4 enemies stacked on top of each other that are coming at you, and you're going to die again real quick. So that's very odd. I've never played a run and gun game where the enemies are that kind of bullet sponges so early
I
on.
think you meant to say hideous.
Yeah.
Hideous, not odd.
The enemies in this game are straight out of the Brian the Lion playbook, and that they're not really out to get you as much as they are just on their daily shambles. So they're just kind of strolling along. Some of them at faster speeds, some of them at slower speeds. They don't have their eye on you. They're just going about their business. If you happen to be unlucky enough to be in their path, you're dead. But they're not malevolent enemies. They're just sort of dopey looking.
On the later levels, did you go through the later parts of this at all?
No, I didn't make it to the later parts.
So yeah, no one could. Well, I mean, that's not true. I will say the game you can play the game like I easily got to like just without cheating or anything. I could get to like the 3rd level.
Yeah, that's
right?
about how far I got.
But then I wanted to die at that point. I mean, physically, I was like, please just let this Flimbo die. But I did put in the money cheat so I could test all the stuff you can buy, and so I could see the whole game. That was a waste of time. But you can do it. But on the later levels, the enemies get a little more. They get faster, bigger. I mean, sometimes they're huge. The enemies that you have to fight, and then you have to deal with that because they're a little smarter. But I mean, this game, I wouldn't say the difficulty level is off the charts, but it is. You can get a big. It just gets monotonous. I guess is the best way to put it. Here you stand on a platform, and you know you need to go from one side of the screen to the other, and so you've got to just walk through this like shambling, like Boat said. It's like 4 or 5 monsters just like walking down the street. And they're good, and they just keep coming. And you shoot 3 or 4, and there's 3 or 4 more, and you have to shoot them all because your idiot can't jump far enough to just do anything else. So it just gets monotonous. It gets old, Plus, there's a time limit on top of everything else, which that was really never a huge problem.
This is one of these things. They give you a time limit to complete the game in. And so it's not a huge problem unless you're actually trying to complete the game, and then it's a huge problem because you don't have enough time. And they warn you about this.
That's how that works. I was wondering about that.
They warn you about this in the manual. They say, don't try and get any upgrades. Just go for time, because time's the most important commodity. This is another game design faux pas. Because if you put awesome stuff in your game to upgrade your dude, you want to let your players explore that stuff and feel like they're awesome. You don't want to discourage them from doing it in order to buy more time to complete your crappy game. That's no good.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the time, because I wasn't quite up on that, how that worked. But I thought to myself, okay, here's what you got to do. Instead of just like going through the levels, I thought maybe you should just sit around and just kill stuff for money and then try to advance that way. I thought, but that would take exponentially longer. So that's probably why they put that in there.
Yeah,
so that does,
because otherwise you could do exactly that.
So, crummy weapon, goofy levels, lazy like gameplay. Now let's talk about, as we love to do, let's talk about the titular hero of the game, Flimbo, the superhero of Dewdrop Land, this lame-sounding land. Flimbo, the superhero, has a, like I would say, light blue or almost purple and white striped dumb guy hat with a big dumb guy Gomer Pyle bill on it. And then he's got a body that resembles KT from Top Banana, just tiny little body. And he's wearing, what would you describe his clothing as? It's also bluish.
Well, imagine a court jester dressed in striped blue and dark blue with a wide Elvis jumpsuit collar and then add to that a blue striped Gomer Pyle style flipped up ball cap with an F embroidered on the bottom of the bill.
Yeah, you gotta have the F on there. You know,
Mhm.
it looks like this guy escaped from a road crew. That's what it reminds. You know, those guys, they put those guys on the chain gang. They wear
Yeah.
those striped hats and the uniform. So maybe Flimbo's on the run. That's my guess on this.
Listen, this game reeks of the demo scene. What you've got is you've got people that are skilled artists and animators, okay? Nothing in this game looks bad. Flimbo looks dopey, but I mean, that's
Correct.
just how they do it in
Yeah,
Europe.
some of the creatures look pretty good.
The creatures look cool.
Well, some
The
of them.
actually I think all of them look pretty cool in the right setting. The backgrounds look nice, very Roger Dean-esque. The foreground it is what it is. It's not spectacular. But nothing about this game looks terrible. It's clearly designed by people who have no concept of what makes a fun game in this genre.
So I agree with that, of course. You know, I don't know what to say about this one because I literally I hate this game. All right, and it's not the worst game we ever played. But
No.
it bothers me because I hate the gameplay in it. It's rinse and repeat, so lazy. It's the laziest of gameplays. And I hate games. You know, it's funny. We've been doing Amigos for a long time, Boater, and we've played a lot of stuff that came from the 8-bit scene. Okay. Now, I didn't try this on the C64, but I know on the C64, this game got rave reviews. It was quite popular on the C64, which is I can understand that. It looks pretty good, you know. And the concept I guess is sort of unique if that's your cup of tea. But I mean, again, I always think about something you said in an episode long ago. If you bring home your $1,000 worth of Amiga hardware into your pad, and you're like, "Here we go, let's fire it up," and then you throw in Flimbo, you know what I mean? I'd be thinking to myself, I've made a horrible mistake. And no game should ever make you say that. No game should make you say, "Hey, wait a minute. I had this on the C64 and it might be better on there." That should never happen, right?
Right. And this is the type of gameplay loop that you could totally get away with on the 8-bit machines. I mean, let's look at a game like Miner 2049er. Okay? What are
Please.
you doing? You're painting the floor with your feet. That's the
Right.
loop. You're painting the yeah, because it's an 8-bit game. You know, it's the early days of video gaming. On the 16-bit systems in 1990, we have moved beyond that. And you've got to bring more to the table. You know, the 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 loop in Flimbo is not enough to progress this thing into the 16-bit era.
And I will say, getting back to the concept of this game, there's a way to pull this off, right? The 10 screens, but you'd want to have something 50 times more manic and smooth. You know, like, I mean, if you think about it, a game like Killing Game Show has something in common with a game like this, all right? Because it's going, I mean, you're going upwards, obviously, the water. But I mean, when you screen by screen, you're rolling around in a set amount of screens in a world, you know. But the way they went about it is it was smooth and quick. You know, this game is just and the enemies in it don't help. It's just like everything they did it makes it more frustrating and boring and lame. It's a lame effort. Boat. I'm not a fan of this one. Did anyone have enough jack to brave giving this a whirl in the old Discord? Did we get any
Let's
reviews?
check it out. I think we got at least one. We did. We got one from Pajako 6502. He says
yeah.
Flimbo's Quest is not what I would call a bad game. But having come to this fresh and having played a lot of Amiga platformers, this one has some poorly thought out design choices and repetitive gameplay. A lot of retro games are repetitive, but something in this game just felt a bit uninspiring. When all you're doing is traipsing back and forth across levels, playing Where's Waldo in a sea of similar looking enemies. There's also questionable level design and sprite collisions. Some background objects look like platforms, and there are small gaps that you will fall through. What really lets the game down is the color clash. When you have enemies that blend into the background, then the player is in for a bad time. Sadly, this happens over and over again, and ultimately, for a game that is against the clock, having to tread carefully is not what you want. Also, side note, imagine this on a CRT, a fresh level of heck for sure. However, it is playable and runs pretty well, plus it has the mythical music and sound effects. I will say that is a point in its favor.
Yeah, it's got some pretty good tunes in it.
Yeah, the tunes are not bad in this at all. Sound effects are all right. The graphical elements are good isolation, but when put together, you end up with something that looks like a magic eye picture. Also, the story does not fit the game and feels quite tacked on. Did Flimbo's Quest start out as something different, perhaps? Worth playing, but not one for Desert Island discs. 6 out of 10.
So he did bring up something I had forgotten to mention on my cavalcade of hate. So as you run through these different levels, sometimes you could step on things that don't look like platforms, and often you'll try to step on things that look like they can hold you, but you just go through them. I hate that. Make it clear where you can go, and it happens all the time on this
The biggest problem that I had with this game was stepping on the shells.
Yes. Those are all the eggs. It's crap. Now here I'm gonna lay a couple things on you here. First, let's just look at how this reviewed. Lemon, people over Lemon Boat gave this a 7.07, and the Hall of Light folks gave this a lower score of 75. So they're putting this in that range. When it was originally released back in the day, Amiga Action was not amused and dropped the 53% on this. Although I do think that was looking at the budget version. Although really, no price could make this thing that good. Amiga Joker gave this a 63, which is like a 200 for them. CU Amiga gave it a 92, so the check cleared down in Australia. Listen to this. Dator Magazine gave this a 9 out of 10. What am I seeing here? I'm baffled by these scores. 09 gave us a 79. The average magazine rating, 67, which is I find hilarious. But get this, Boat. I mentioned the fact that they were going to do a Spectrum version that got canceled. They also had planned on doing some sequels to this. For the C64, but the second one was going to be for, get this, the other sequel for this was going to come out on the Super Nintendo, Boat. The Super Nintendo. So they were planning on making it a little more Zelda-like in that one, and to produce that one. Something else that I found was amusing, the Euphoria group that developed this, the boys without brains, they never got any money from System 3. And so eventually the credited designer Lawrence Vanderdonk, get this, according to Moby, took an oversized novelty check requesting £2,000 to a trade show that System 3 was at, and System 3 did finally pay them out of sheer embarrassment after they brought a novelty check to Light there. And lastly, this game, I did look on eBay. I thought to myself, what's a game like this going to go on eBay? Because I thought this would be El Cheapo Grande. No, wrong. The people are asking $65 US, and one has sold recently for $65, Boat. So somebody out there paid big money for the old Flimbo. Not something I would do, that's for darn sure.
Welcome to Retro Rewind. I'm your host, British Jones. Whether you're into the Amiga, Commodore 64, or Tiger floral print speed suits, Retro Rewind has all you need from the friendly hosers of the Great White North. Looking to upgrade your Amiga? Check out the Amiga OS 3.2.2 Kickstart ROM for just $18. Or maybe you need a C64 or C128 diagnostic harness. Grab one while they're hot. Don't miss our best sellers like the 1541 Transit Card for just $1, or the incredible Amiga Coin Cell Battery Adapter. Shop now at Retro Rewind Limited and bring your classic computers back to life. Retro Rewind Limited. Frank's the man.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron. it's time to pull yourself away from your NFL games and take
Yes.
in some Amiga news. Starting out with the old Sonic the Hedgehog, Aaron, talking about Euro platformers. It's been the dream of many an Amiga fan to get Sonic over on the Amiga. Some attempts have been tried before. This isn't the first time that we've seen this, but I believe this is the first time that we've seen it using the unbeatable, unstoppable Scorpion engine.
Put it over. It's the best.
This thing is looking sharp. I believe, if you want to be particular, I think this may be based on the Game Gear / Master System version of Sonic, not the Genesis version,
which is great, by the way.
Yeah. This is still early days, but what we've got here is we've got Sonic moving at a decent clip, and we have a rendition of the Immortal Sonic theme of a Green Hill Zone pumping through the Paula. So props to the developers of this game. This is Niso, who Niso being the I think Niso is actually the guy behind the Scorpion. Oh no, it's Earrock is the Scorpion engine guy. Sorry, Niso though, we've heard his name before, and you can download this game right now over at Niso. I'm sorry, moodler.pl/sonic.zip. Okay. Don't put that in by ear. Click on the link. You might end up somewhere you don't want to be.
I will say this looks great. I think they're well in. I will say I don't the music's not there yet. I did hear because it's one of those gimmicks where when stuff happens in one channel, like part of the music goes away. But it's early days. So they probably just got something stuck in there. But I mean, gameplay wise, you're right. By the way, it's a good call. It's an excellent notice that this does look a lot like the Master System rendition, which that's not a bad thing because the Master System and the Game Gear, they got a real. People were stunned at how good it was.
Yeah.
So that's not the worst thing to do. But I mean, for your lay person, they're gonna be like, oh, cool, look Sonic, and that'll be good enough for them. But I mean, yeah, this shows you the kind of jack that this engine's capable of because I mean, Sonic moves at a good clip.
That's right. And Aaron, we had slow news week this week. Only one more story, but another banger. One of our very favorite public domain games of all time, Alien Fishfinger, has a new release. Oh
my God.
It says, okay. I take it back. I added this story without actually reading it. I'm not going to lie to you. Apparently, this new update comes from 2011. So I'm not exactly sure how if this is a version, but I don't think that this is a version that we played before. I think that this is a version that he's released on his website as charityware, Aaron. Charityware. So the developer David Cruikshanks, he has released this thing with lots of new and exciting updates as charityware. We're gonna have to give this one another go, Aaron, perhaps an Amigathon, to see if this version 1.31 stands up to the version that we played before.
It's funny that you pulled this up because this was recently featured. In fact, it may be the current issue over on the magazine cover disc.
Yeah, Amiga Addict, right?
Amiga Addict's cover disc. Because I was tooling around on Twitter when I saw it. I was like, oh boy, that right there. Because I mean, I don't think a lot of people played this for the obvious reason. I mean, people in the know did. But if you haven't played this, it's a great game. I mean, real deep, too. I mean, real head-scratcher in some parts of it to get around. And we also had we exchanged a little bit of correspondence with the guy that wrote it. And he seemed like a real nice guy.
Yeah.
And so the fact that here we are in can you believe it? Here we are in 2024. Here comes Alien Fishfinger coming out of nowhere. And hopefully he'll get a lot of new fans out of this because I think this is... I mean, when someone asks us, hey, what's the best thing you played from public domain? I mean, and we've played a lot of good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But this one is always at the forefront of my mind, if not for the name, but just for the fact that it was really a stunning surprise when we played it. So, yeah, I give this a big thumbs up. I love this game quite a bit. I'm glad to see he's getting a little bit of notoriety on the magazine. I like the fact that these guys are doing, like, these virtual magazine cover discs. Good idea. It's kind of neat, and also it highlights various projects and games that you might not have known about before. So I'm all for that, man.
Yeah. And that's going to do it for this week's Amiga News, Aaron. What do we got coming up next week on Amigos?
Speak of the devil boat, it's public domania coming back around. And so I believe they've actually picked a game for this. Have you seen what the game is yet?
They have picked the game. The game that we are going to be playing next week is Death Angel, Aaron. Death Angel.
Is that the magician that everybody hates?
No. Death Angel is it's supposed to be one of the greatest shooters ever for the Amiga.
Really?
So
very good. Hey,
listen,
listen,
to it already.
Before we go, a special well done, because our own the Brent is now a grandpappy.
That's right.
His son and his son's wife just gave birth to a lovely little girl, and that's great. And so it's awesome. I'm happy for the Brent. So congratulations. That old geezer is finally getting this proper title of Grandpa. So congratulations to Brent. We miss you.
Congratulations, Brent. Well done.
That's right.
All right, Aaron. As always, it's time for us to end the show. So, if you like what you've heard,
every time we do it.
If you like what you've heard, and you're not the developer of Flimbo's Quest, because I doubt he's going to be signing up on Patreon anytime soon, you can give us a shout over there, patreon.com/Amigos Podcast. Get into our Discord, get a magnet at the end of the year, all kinds of fun stuff. We appreciate all of you fine folks that are part of our community, as well as our Twitch subscribers. We always enjoy having you in the chat when we record live every Friday, except when we don't, on twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. Guys, as always, we'll see you next week. And until then, adios.
Adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos Podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.